Part 3. The Hive Beneath. They started calling it ashfall like it was weather. On the news, it looked almost pretty light gray dust drifting lazily under streetlights in cities that had never seen wildfire smoke or volcanic eruptions. Kids laughed as they tossed it into the air. Drivers complained about having to wash their cars more often. Meteorologists smiled stiffly as they explained it must be a global atmospheric anomaly. Probably from fires, maybe from industry. Nothing to worry about. Clara Rowe watched one of those reports in silence from the far end of the coalition briefing room. The TV light flickered across her face, washing her in cold blues and grays. Clara's hand tightened around the edge of the table so hard her knuckles ached. Doctor. Quan clicked the remote, and the screen went black. The room felt suddenly smaller without the fake cheer of the newscaster's voice filling it. At this time, Quan said carefully, "We don't have proof that what we're seeing is F-13 related. Atmospheric tests show mostly inorganic particulate, no measurable pathogenic activity." Yet, Clara said. The word dropped into the room like a stone. Nobody argued. General Rivas stood at the head of the table, back straight, hands braced on the polished surface. The years had carved deep grooves around his mouth. Today they seemed deeper. "We didn't bring Ms. Rowe here to argue about TV," he said. "We brought her here because she's the only person on record who's walked into a major hive zone and come back alive. She's seen more of what this thing can do than any of us." Clara didn't feel like an expert. She felt like a survivor who'd stayed unlucky enough to be useful. She could still see Briar Hollow if she closed her eyes, the bone ash structures rising from the tunnels. The way Vargas' eyes had glowed with that ember light, the massive, pulsing horror that had been the Hive Mother. She could still smell smoke in her dreams. She could still hear clicking teeth in the quiet minutes when sleep refused to come. "Show her," Rivas said. Quan tapped a few keys and turned on the wall screen behind him. Satellite images appeared blurry grays and glowing splotches of false color. Thermal maps. "We started seeing these anomalies 2 weeks after the Briar Hollow event," Quan said, pointing with a pen. "At first we thought it might be infrastructure, underground power, geothermal vents. Now we're not so sure." The first image zoomed in, a sprawling city, seen from above. Beneath it, in bright orange, a branching pattern glowed thin lines and nodes like roots or veins. "This is under Berlin," Quan said. Another image, zooming in from a different angle. "Sao Paulo, Johannesburg, Osaka. Signs of concentrated underground heat that don't match any known utility maps or natural systems." The branching patterns had a horrible familiarity. Clara had seen something like them before, drawn in ash and bone under Briar Hollow. "It's building," she said quietly. "Underground, or something is growing," Quan replied. "We think ash particles carried on wind currents settled around the world. Most of it is inert unless it finds a reservoir of heat and organic material. Deep subway tunnels, sewage systems, old industrial spaces. Mines. Anywhere we've stacked a planet with trash, warmth, and dead matter," Clara muttered. "Exactly," Quan said. Rivas straightened. "We've chosen one site to investigate directly," he said. "We can't send teams everywhere, and we need ground truth. Something we can see, touch, measure." Another map appeared. Not a city this time. A stretch of rocky coastline. Jagged cliffs, a forest spilling down a hillside. A small cluster of buildings at the base. "Where is that?" Clara asked. "North of Bilbao," Quan said. "Spain. A decommissioned iron mine beneath the town of Arroyo Negro. The mine closed after multiple cave-ins," and he glanced at his notes, frowning. "Unexplained structural failures. Unexplained accidents," Clara translated. 3 weeks ago, Rivas said, locals started reporting constant tremors and strange sounds from underground. "We have a strong heat signature from that area now, stronger than anywhere else outside Briar Hollow." He pressed a key, and the audio filled the room. At first, Clara thought it was just distant wind in a tunnel. Then she heard it, the faint, repetitive sound beneath the noise, like dry bones tapping or claws clicking in sequence. Her skin prickled. "It's them," she said, "or something like them. We've already evacuated the town under cover of a gas leak," Rivas said. "We have a perimeter, armed units, remote sensors, but we need eyes, and we need someone who will know what they're looking at when they see it." He held her gaze. "We need you, Ms. Rowe." Clara wanted to say no. She wanted to tell them they were insane. She wanted to walk out of the building and disappear into some quiet corner of the world where the ash hadn't started falling yet. Instead, she heard herself say, "When do we leave?" Arroyo Negro had always been a quiet place. Rows of simple houses, a single church, a bar that smelled like old wood and strong coffee, a grocery store, a school. Now it was all empty. Clara stepped out of the truck and into a street that felt like a photograph. Doors stood open. Curtains moved slightly in the ocean breeze. Someone's laundry hung forgotten on a line between two balconies, shirts and socks stirring like ghosts. A thin layer of dust coated everything. Not just normal dust. When she brushed some from a railing with her gloved fingers, it left a faint gray smear. Ash. A man approached her, wiping his hands on his trousers. Sun-browned skin, dark hair tied back, and engineer's tired eyes. "Clara Rowe?" he asked in accented English. "That's me," she said. "I am Javier Moreno," he said, offering his hand. "I worked this mine for 10 years before they closed it. Since then I've mapped most tunnels around here. They tell me I am your guide." She shook his hand. His grip was solid. "Then I'm glad you're here," she said. "I'd rather not get lost down there alone." They walked toward the mine entrance on the outskirts of town. 2 soldiers in matte black gear waited there, along with a geologist named Rana, a communications tech, and Dr. Annika Steinshort, precise, restless, a portable lab case chained to her wrist. "We are not here for heroics," Stein said by way of greeting. "We confirm the hive, collect data, and find a way to crush it. If we get the chance to bury it alive, we take it." The mine mouth was a black wound framed by decaying timbers and rusted metal. Warning signs in Spanish and English flapped in the wind. "No entry, risk of collapse. Peligro prohibido El Paso." "Comforting," Javier muttered. They donned helmets and lamps. Clara adjusted the strap and checked the modified scanner on her chest. It hummed faintly. "Stay in line," Javier said, leading them in. "Supports are old. Rock is tired. If we start a collapse, whatever's down there won't have to kill us." The air changed as soon as they passed under the first beam. Outside, there had been salt and sun. Inside, it was stone, metal, and something else dry and bitter, like the ghost of a fire. Their footsteps echoed. Water dripped somewhere ahead. After a slow descent, Clara's scanner chirped. "Talk," Stein said behind her. "Increased particulate and a small thermal rise." Clara replied. "Not enough to be magma. Something else." "Heat source ahead," Rana confirmed, staring at her own device. The first junction chamber showed them what the something else was. Clara's headlamp cut across the walls, and she sucked in a breath. White ridges grew from the rock, curved, ribbed, arcing along the chamber like the inside of a giant cage. Not actual bone, but fused ash and mineral shaped to resemble it. Dark veins ran through them, pulsing faintly with ember points. "What the hell?" one soldier whispered. The ash on the floor clung to Clara's boots, stretching and rippling. When she lifted her feet, her scanner flashed. Mutated pathogen detected. It read, "Colony state, active, so much for weather," Clara murmured. Stein stared, both fascinated and horrified. "It's using the rock as scaffolding," she said. "Like coral on a reef, only the reef thinks." "Great," Javier said. "Intelligent limestone." They pushed deeper. The hive growth thickened, crawling along the tunnel walls. The deeper they went, the more Clara felt watched not by eyes, but by the space itself. The scanner beeped faster. "Thermal spike ahead," she said. "Large, central. Then we're close." Stein replied. They saw the first Ashwalker fused into the wall. It was half embedded in the bone ash structure, arms stretched, head thrown back. At first Clara thought it was just a corpse, then its ember eyes flickered. Ash cracked around its limbs as it pulled free with wet tearing sounds. It stepped down onto the tunnel floor, bare blackened feet sending rings of disturbance through the ash layer. It turned its head and looked at Clara. The pressure in her skull sharpened. Not overwhelming, but focused like a beam of heat on the back of her mind. "Clara," Stein's voice was tight. "What's happening?" "It sees us," Clara whispered. "It recognizes me." The Ashwalker shifted, then turned its head toward a side shaft. It looked back at Clara, then it stepped aside, clearing the entrance. "Is it inviting us?" Javier breathed. It's guiding us, Clara said. It wants us there. Then that's where we need to be, Stein said. Move. They passed within arm's reach of the creature. It radiated dry heat, like an oven door cracked open. It didn't lash out. It simply pivoted, ember eyes tracking them as they entered the shaft. The tunnel spiraled downward. The tremors became steady, like a giant sleeping heart. Clara's scanner screamed warnings as they stepped into the core chamber. It was vast. Bone ash arches held the ceiling in a grotesque lattice. The walls pulsed with ember-veined growth, and in the center, rising like a tumor, was the core. All the consumed material here, rock, ash, metal, bodies had been fused into a single grotesque mass. Layer upon layer oozed and hardened, glowed and dimmed. Human shapes jutted from it, faces twisted in frozen terror, arms reaching, torsos half swallowed, eyes rolled in a few sockets. Some mouths opened and closed soundlessly. Clara's stomach turned. They're still alive, she whispered. Neurologically, at least, Stein muttered, eyes wide. Brains used as nodes. It's building itself from us. The presence hit Clara then hard and total. Her mind felt submerged in a sea of whispers. Not words, but impulses. Hunger, calculation, awareness. Her knees weakened. She forced herself to stay upright. Movement above drew her gaze. A torso emerged from the upper core, arms half fused into the mass. A familiar face lifted, streaked with ash, veins faintly glowing. Vargas, she breathed. His eyes opened fully. Clara, he said. His voice carried a second tone beneath it, a deep resonance that wasn't human. One of the soldiers lifted his rifle. Stein yanked it down. Do not shoot the neural hub of a global hive while we're standing in its throat, she snapped. Clara took a step closer. You should be dead, she said. You blew the tunnel. You stayed behind. I did, Vargas said. And it found me. Or I found it. Hard to say now. You're its puppet, she said. He smiled sadly. I'm part of it. It's part of me. Stop thinking of it as an infection you shake off. It's a new predator. You don't cure wolves. You learn where they hunt. The core pulsed harder. Dust trickled from the ceiling. It wants something from me, Clara said. It wants everything from you, Vargas replied. You survived contact. You resisted absorption. That makes you precious. Stein's eyes flicked to Clara. Immune anomaly, she murmured. It's trying to blueprint you. Clara felt the hive pressing at her thoughts, probing scars left by its own virus, testing the places where her body had fought it off. She pushed back. I'm not raw material, she said through clenched teeth. The pressure in her mind increased, then recoiled as it met stubborn refusal. Vargas grimaced. Embers in his veins flared. It doesn't understand, no, he said. Not yet, then we teach it, Javier said, by dropping this whole cave on its head. All eyes turned to him. He pointed at the arching growths overhead. Those things aren't reinforcing the rock. They're weighing it down. You can see the stress fractures. This chamber is barely holding. Place charges at the main load points, at the natural fault lines, and we can bring it down. Kill the core, Stein asked. Crush it, Javier said. Starve it of heat and movement. It'll take decades, maybe centuries, for anything under that much rock to matter again. You won't kill the hive, Vargas said. It stretches much farther than this. We'll hurt it. Clara said. Make it smaller, slower. Force it to adapt on our terms for once. The core trembled. The hive structures along the walls quivered like nerve endings. The Ashwalkers near the entrance shifted, tense. It knows, Stein said. Activity spiking. We don't have long. Riva's voice crackled faintly from above. Rowe, talk to me. We've found the heart, she said, and we're going to break it. Javier and the soldiers moved quickly, pulling compact charges from their packs. Stein pointed out stress lines on the scanner. They placed explosives at the bases of the largest bone ash arches, at cracked pillars, at bulging sections of ceiling rock. Clara stepped to the edge of the core's ashen slope. Vargas watched her. What are you doing? Keeping it busy, she said. She lowered her hand until her fingertips pressed into the ash. Heat and thought hit her like a bomb. The hive poured into her. Its awareness rushed along the bridge of that contact, flooding her senses with fragments from other hives, other tunnels, other Ashwalkers. Pain from Briar Hollow, confusion from its first collapse, curiosity about her. Her body shook. Blood ran from her nose. Clara, Javier shouted. She ignored him. You want to understand me, she thought, forcing clarity into the chaos. Then look, really look. She shoved her memories outward, the fear, yes, but also the choices she'd made against fear. Going back into tunnels when every instinct screamed, no. Dragging people out when logic said leave them. Touching this thing now when any sane person would have run. Defiance burned down the connection. The hive recoiled. Around them, the tremors spiked. The core's surface rippled violently. Some of the embedded faces screamed silently, mouths stretching. Charges ready, one soldier yelled. We need to move. Clara stayed where she was. Do it, she shouted. Before it learns too much, Stein didn't hesitate. She hit the detonator. Explosions rippled through the chamber, a rapid chain of muted booms. The bone ash arches shattered. The rock above groaned, cracked, and then surrendered. The ceiling came down. Massive slabs of stone plunged into the core. The hive structures snapped. Emerald veins burst like severed arteries. The entire chamber convulsed. The hive screamed. It wasn't sound, not really. It was pressure turned to agony. A psychic shockwave slamming through Clara's mind. She felt like her skull was splitting. Arms grabbed her, hauling her backward. Move, Javier roared into her ear. They ran. The tunnel lurched around them, thus turned the air into choking fog. Rocks crashed, some glancing off shoulders and helmets. Once, Clara's foot slipped on falling debris, and she nearly went down. Javier dragged her upright without slowing. Behind them, the world roared like a dying beast. The hive's presence tore at Clara as it collapsed, then flickered, then dimmed, then, finally, dropped to a distant hum. Darkness swallowed them. She woke to the sound of waves and beeping machines. The infirmary ceiling looked to white. You're getting a habit of waking up in these beds, Javier said from the nearby chair. You keep dragging me into holes full of monsters, she croaked. Maybe stop doing that. He smiled tiredly. I'll consider it. Stein arrived, tablet in hand. Rivas followed, looking like he'd aged another 5 years. The Arroyo Negro core is gone, Stein said without preamble. The chamber is collapsed. No thermal activity. No detectable movement beneath the rubble. Clara let out a long, shaky breath. And the rest of it? She asked. Stein tapped her tablet. Global anomalies dipped when the core fell, she said. For about 6 minutes. Then they came back different, less concentrated. Spread thinner. It flattened its structure. No. More single, big peaks. Just a lot of smaller ones. We taught it not to keep all its thoughts in one place, Javier said. We taught it pain, Stein replied. And redundancy. Rivas crossed his arms. Your brain scans worry them, he added. The doctors. Your neural activity shows residue, echoes of the hive's pattern. Am I contagious? Clara asked. Not in any known way, Stein said. You're more like a tuned antenna now. It used you as a bridge. We can use that. To talk to it, Clara asked. To interfere, Stein said. To send noise, confuse its coordination, maybe infect its mind with an idea it can't scrub out. A thought virus, Clara said softly. Stein smiled humorlessly. Exactly, on the muted TV in the corner. Ash drifted down over another city. A reporter waved a hand through it, forcing a smile. Clara watched the ash fall against the screen. She could feel the faint pressure in her skull again, a distant hum like a radio station between channels. Deep underground, in other tunnels, other chambers, other forgotten places, the hive beneath adjusted. It withdrew from the crushed node in Spain, rerouted around the wound, spread itself thinner so no single blow could hurt that much again. It had learned something new. So had she. They were both still changing. You have seen the mind beneath the world, but the hive is still learning, still watching. This was the Hive Beneath, City of Hunger Part 3. Don't leave the loop. Night comes next, and with it, the collectors.